we're going to be talking about how to win in your poker home game. Home games are a lot of fun. You can make a lot of money, but you can also torch a lot of money. I've had some great successes in home games, and I've had some really big failures in home games, and I want to today discuss how to crush your home game. It's been a while. If this show is functioning properly, please let me know. If this show is not functioning properly, please let me know that as well. Anytime I go in for a trip, inevitably, things do not work properly. Just got back from Las Vegas. That went well enough. We took second place in a $10,000 buy-in tournament. I launched an NFT series called Deck of Degeneracy. We sold out. Holders of that got 51% of my score. Also, we've been giving away other people's action. We've given out $100,000 to holders of that NFT series so far. We have about $70,000 in poker free rolls lined up for people who hold that coming up in the near future. We have a bunch of pieces of art lined up. It's been a fun passion project for me. Are we live yet? Louis Fleet maybe says we're live. Shout out to poker coaching member Seth, who won $20,000 over the weekend. Nice. Good job, good work. Nick says you're going through the tournament masterclass. Good job, good work. Are we live? We're not going to go through the topic until I know we're live. Somebody, somewhere, somehow, must tell me if this is functioning or not. It seems like we're functioning, but maybe we're not. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're not. Let me go check it, take a look. You never know. Some of you are saying you were live.
Birthday breakfast in bed.
Oh, that's not what I want. We'll see if we're live on Twitch over here as well. All right, you all are saying we're live. Good. Good, good, good. My chair just fell apart. My guys have been in, my boys, my children have been in the office. Going through, tearing stuff up. You know how they go, or how they do. If you are buffering, you're going to have to click refresh. Somebody in the chat, let them know. Click refresh. All right, first things first. Most poker home games don't play specifically No Limit Hold'em. Look at this mess the kids made. Here we have literal World Poker Tour Championship bracelets just hanging out. You're asking how my Vegas trip was. We already talked about this, but yes, Vegas trip was good. I took second place in a $10,000 buy-in tournament, so that is good. Can't really complain. I didn't win any all-ins besides that, so that was unfortunate. Okay, so let's talk about poker home games. That's what we're talking about today. First things first, you need to learn to play whatever games are actually played at your home game well. So many poker players think, I know how to play No Limit Hold'em, so I'm going to go play my home game. And the next thing you know, you're playing baseball 7-card stud, or you're playing 4-flop Omaha, or crisscross Omaha, or who knows what nonsense you're playing. You want to do your best to study those various games. Very, very important. You want to study those various games. In games that are dealer choice, some games value position more. The no-limit games, in particular, usually value position a little bit more than the limit games. So, when you're on the button, usually when you get to pick the game, you want to play a game that relies heavily on position. Instead of a game like just straight 7-card stud, where the position is effectively random, right? It's very, 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 very important. You want to play a game that maximizes the exact situation that you are in. Now, if you were, like, let's say in your game, you pick the game when you're under the gun at a No Limit Hold'em game or whatever, well, you don't really want to be in the small blind or under the gun, so you may want to play a game where position is less relevant, like 7-card stud, even if you don't love that game, right? Because that's a spot where you're effectively random, right? So you want to make sure that you understand the structure of the games and you understand how to actually play the various games well. Now, if you don't know how to play the various games well, You either need to study or you need to play when those games are unlikely to be chosen, right? That may be when specific players are not in the game. Realize, just because a game exists does not mean that you have to play it. So many people think, oh man, my friends play this game and I want to play with my friends, so I guess I have to go play the game. But no, you don't have to play the game just because the game exists. You don't. You absolutely do not have to play a game just because it exists. You are allowed to not play. Not taking an action is taking an action. All right. Something else you can do is you can introduce your own game if they let you. I used to play a home game back when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and I came up with a great game of Pot Limit Omaha, except you get 5 cards. And before the flop, everybody discards a card. Sounds like 5-card pineapple PLO or something like that. Except those discards would become the board. Fun game, right? This is a game that highly rewards you if you know the odds of your card coming. If you're playing 5-handed, your card's always coming because there's 5 cards on the board. If you're playing 8-handed, though, your card's not always coming. It's important to know if your card comes if you actually have the nuts, right? Great thing to do is to have, let's say, the ace of spades and 2 other spades and discard a spade. And then if 2 spades come on the board and you know yours is going to come, then you're going to have a flush. Now, it may not be the nut flush if it'll be the nut flush, but it may not be the nuts if there's something like a full house on the board. But sometimes you will know definitively if you're going to have the nuts on the river. That's very valuable. If you've done a little bit of thinking and a little bit of playing this game away from the table, that's highly valuable. Something a lot of the biggest winning mixed game players do is that they make a group of friends and they practice a new game a long time in advance before they introduce it to the public. Sounds a little bit predatory to some extent, and maybe it is. Good example of this is open-faced Chinese poker. Remember when this game came out? I know for a fact the people who made the game popular, who started playing it, had been playing that game among a group of 6 or 8 really sharp people for a year or 2 before they introduced it to the public. That means they're going to crush the public when the public comes in. Inevitably, they're going to demolish them, right? And they did. They cleaned up. Who'd have thought? They did this exact same thing a few years earlier with deuce to 7 in the middle in regular Chinese poker. Is that out of line? I don't think so. I mean, you're allowed to study a game, and if people are willing to play it with you, that's part of the hustle that you must do if you want to play high-stakes private games, I suppose. Now, I personally don't like that hustle. I don't want to be involved in that hustle whatsoever. But the way you win at poker is to find people you can beat. Remember, find a game you can beat. Step number 1. An easy way to find a game you can beat is to invent the game yourself, get really good at the game, and then find other people to play the game with you. Easy way to win. Find a game you can beat, play it a lot, keep a proper bankroll, easy game. So should you do that? Maybe you should. I realize it's easier said than done, but whenever you're talking about playing high stakes games for a ton of money, then, there's a lot of benefit in doing a lot of work ahead of time before introducing a game. Anyway, whenever I introduced, we called it Trash, that 5-card PLO game where you discard a card and those become the boards. I had not played it with anyone, but it was clear to me that some people did not know how to read the board well. They did not know how to factor in if there's like 2 cards to come and they know they're just coming 50-50. How much do you weigh that, right? Et cetera, et cetera. Some people think their card's always coming on the river, even if there's like 4 cards that could come on the river, right? So anyway, people didn't understand the odds, and that alone right there gave me a pretty big edge. All right, next. When you're playing home games, you first off need to know how to play the games you're going to play reasonably well. But also, you want to make sure you keep the game fun and casual. So many people who take the game seriously, who study poker, who work hard at poker, go to the home game, they wear sunglasses and headphones and a hoodie, and they don't talk to anybody, and they're standoffish, and they create a hostile environment. And the last thing you want to do is create a hostile environment in a game where people are going to play for fun. Have you had your brain fuel this morning? Check out BRÈINFÚEL.com. Use promo code POKERCOACHING. You'll get 15% off. Yeah. It's good stuff. I'll be going all day. Today's a work day. Mondays are hard work days. Grandpa comes, takes care of the kids, and I get to work in this little office all day. Okay. Keep the game fun. How do you keep the game fun? To some extent, it is doing what everybody else does, within reason. I realize that some games people play all night, they have some drinks, they gamble on sports, who knows what they're doing, right? And I'm not going to say you need to maximally partake in having lots of drinks or whatever, but also don't be a party pooper. Nobody really likes the party pooper. And you got to realize when you're playing home games, you must figure out a way to be invited. It's very different than going to play in a casino where you can, to some extent, do whatever you want. Now, even in a casino, you should, to some extent, follow these rules. But in a home game, you must follow the rule of don't be a party pooper, because if you're a party pooper and people just generally don't like you, they won't invite you back. They will not invite you back. And they should not invite you back. If you make the game not fun, then they're not going to invite you back. And if they don't invite you back, you don't get to play, and then you don't get your action, right? So you must, to some extent, keep the game fun. Yeah, it's step number one is to get invited, but then also you have to get invited back. Two very, very, very important things. If you don't do those two things, it's not going to work out so well for you, right? So you do need to make sure that you are fun. You need to be fun. That maybe means needling people a little, joking with people, having fun with people. You know, you want to be casual. You must be casual. Now, you don't have to be the life of the party, but at the same time, you don't want to just like sit there with sunglasses and headphones on and not talk to anybody, unless you're like really bad at poker, because otherwise, why would they invite you back? Okay? Next, once we're there, we figured out how to get invited back to the games. We are having a fun time. What do we do next? Well, you want to figure out what people do incorrectly. And in home games, very often your opponents play really, really poorly. There are various reasons for this. But you're going to find that typically, as the game gets less and less regulated, the players typically play worse and worse. Not always, but typically. You'll see this happening online. If you play on a very, very buttoned up, legitimate poker site, the games are often kind of tough. If you play on a shady poker site that is not licensed or regulated at all, usually games are pretty soft. Same things in home games. If you go play at you go try to play 10-20 at Bellagio, game's going to be pretty tough. If you go play 10-20 at somebody's home game in name any random state that has no casinos, game's going to be pretty soft. That's just how it goes. So, assuming the games are pretty soft, that means your opponent's going to be making errors left and right. If your opponent's going to be making errors left and right, you should be looking to maximally take advantage of whatever they do incorrectly. Okay? So, in a lot of games, people never 3-bet out of the big blind, for example. Somebody was talking about that to me earlier in the YouTube comments. Shout out to everybody in the YouTube comments, by the way. I read every single comment that comes through. People say, why do you like a lot of the comments? Because it lets me know what I've already looked at. And also because I like it. And I appreciate all of you interacting with me. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. If you were not here, I would not be here. Well, I would be here, just not here doing this show. So, find out the things your opponents do incorrectly and maximally exploit them until they adjust. And the nice thing about a lot of home games is that they play kind of slowly. It's usually not the same cast of characters every time, and people will not adjust quickly at all. Also, in a lot of home games, usually the sessions aren't all that long. You'll find a lot of home games, they start at like 7 p.m. and they quit at like 3 a.m. or earlier, right? I mean, that's 8-hour session. It's not that long. And over the course of a short session, your opponents will not adjust. And if you play the game, let's say once a week or once every 2 weeks, something like that, then you're going to be able to just demolish people who are not actually paying attention and not adjusting. That is worth noting. A lot of home games don't run all the time. Like, there are very few professional home game players. There are some, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some here in the chat. But usually the way you become a professional home game player is getting to play every day. And almost no home games run every day, unless it's like a club type environment, right? So you need to network well. Whenever you get into your first home game, you will have poker players to talk to. Ask them where else they play. A lot of them probably play 1 or 2 or 3 home games a week. Well, if you want to be a professional home game player, get into a bunch of games. Simple as that. You want to make sure that you actually are able to put in volume. If you don't put in volume, even if you have a big edge, you're not going to win a ton of money. Okay? Nick says that he uses home games not only to make money, but also to make connections. Very, very true. I know a realtor who loses in home games every year. But he loses, let's say, 10 or 20,000 bucks in home games, but he sells an extra few $1 million houses each year. Probably not a bad trade-off, right? Works out for everyone. And that's incredibly valuable. It's incredibly valuable to be able to make connections. This goes back to being friendly and making a good environment, right? If people like you and they think that you're a reasonable human, not a clown, but a reasonable human who's fun, who they don't mind hanging out with, they probably won't mind doing business with you either, at least a little bit. And if they don't mind doing business with you at least a little bit, then good things inevitably happen. This is especially going to be true if you are in a service industry that serves individuals, right? That said, I mean, if you're someone who services businesses, a lot of people who play home games have businesses, and maybe you end up working with them. But things like some lawyers, some realtors, any job that you have to find clients. Anything that relies on clients is really, 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 really good for making one-on-one individual connections. Because inevitably, a lot of people want to buy a house. Or if they're playing illegal home games, they get in legal trouble. Who'd have thought? And so some of these jobs are very, very valuable, right? Natty says it may be a good idea to bathe before you go to play. Yeah, I mean, look, there's some baseline things you need to do. You need to make sure you're presentable. You need to make sure, like I said, you're not a clown. You need to make sure that you are not like, you need to make sure you're not disheveled to some extent. Is disheveled a bad word to say? If it is, I apologize. You need to make sure that you're presentable is what it amounts to. I made a blog post about this a long time ago, or a video or something about this, about how if you are a poker player and you want to get a sponsorship from a poker site, you need to be reasonably presentable. This turned out to be incorrect information, by the way, because if you look at a lot of the pros, a lot of the sites hire, let's not offend any pros. They don't like it when I talk about a blanket group of pros. But you get what I'm saying, right? You want to be at least kind of presentable because that's going to make you look a little more professional whether or not you actually are. It's a tough statement. It's a tough statement because I realize a lot of poker players don't like being told what to do. They got into poker because they want to do whatever they want to do. And if they want to wear whatever they want to wear, then, fine. But you need to present yourself in a reasonable way, assuming you're trying to work with businesses, right? Or, people who control businesses, right? Even if you're crushing a home game, having an image of being loose and splashy is valuable. Yeah, for sure. You want to be in there, and you want to you want to be in there battling, right? Like I said, you don't want to sit there and wear hats and hoodies and all that. You want to make the game fun, which means you got to give a little action. You have to give a little action to get a little action. Pros are not slaves to fashion. Again, I'm not saying necessarily fashion, but I'm saying you got to take a bath, right? You got to take a bath. Sorry you do. You got to take a bath. There's like some baseline level of acceptability if you're trying to make people like you. And if you don't smell good, you probably should do something about it. Sorry. I'm sure in 5 years you can't body odor shame people. I apologize. I'm a victim of the times here. But I've played next to a few people who have had very, very bad smell issues, and it's no fun. It's no fun. If you're in a casino, by the way, you're allowed to tell the floor, hey, this is a rough seat because of this reason, and they'll resolve it, usually. If it's actually a problem. Let's see. Something else you can do, once you've figured out how to exploit the leaks, is that quite often a lot of home games start playing kind of small. So how do you make them play bigger? How do you make the game bigger? Well, you can do things like adding in a straddle or adding in an ante, right? So that's one thing you can do. You do not necessarily want to make the stack shallower, though. So things like a straddle and an ante inevitably make the game shallower. So what you want to do is you want to try to do things like just bump up the stakes, but also put more money on the table. A lot of players think that they're creating action by straddling, but at the same time, all they're really doing is decreasing their edge, right? They're playing for more money with a smaller edge, which may be fine. It could be fine. But typically you want to keep the stacks deep and you want to play bigger. So you need to figure out a way to get people to put more money on the table. You can do things like buying in for more money, right? You can just buy in for more money. Say you're playing 5-10 and normally people buy in for $1,000. Maybe you buy in for $4,000 or $5,000. Some people say, oh, I want to play bigger. And then inevitably you put in a straddle and they're like, oh, my $1,000 stack's not looking all that much anymore. Then they'll add on. You can needle people a little bit. Hey, let's play for real. A lot of people don't like being offended by you insulting that they're not actually playing real poker, right? And they may add on. They may play for more money. You can just straight up request to the person who runs the home game, hey, we normally play 5-10, but I know me and 2 other people want to play 10-20. Let's try to run 10-20 this week. And maybe they will. And if they do, great. Now you have a bigger game, right? Quite often, a lot of home games bump it up towards the end of the night because the people who are down want to get even though clearly the idea of I want to be even for the day is asinine. And maybe you don't show up for the first few hours of a home game if that's a possibility, and maybe you only show up towards the end. Or, if the beginning's fine, then, fine. Show up at the beginning and realize you're going to be playing bigger at the end. Some people like to do flips. They like to bet on red or black for a lot of money. If you don't care about swings and you know it's roughly 50-50, then maybe you do that if you know it's going to get the other person on tilt whenever they lose a few in a row, right? That's fantastic. If you don't care about swings, because you're properly bankrolled, and to be fair, you're not really going to be properly bankrolled for a flip because you have no edge, but if you don't mind some swings in there and it may tilt your opponents, then do it, right? You're going to find that most people, not all people, but most people play at least okay. They've seen my Master the Fundamentals course right up there. It's free. Check it out, pokercoaching.com/fundamentals. And they'll play okay until they go on tilt for one reason or another. And if you can do anything to induce them to go on tilt, do it. A lot of people like to run it twice because they want to decrease variance, which, is a perfectly logical thought process. But if your opponents will go on tilt when they lose a big pot, and you won't, run it one time. It's also going to make some of these people afraid to play a big pot with you because they know they may get stacked. One thing, if you watch Garrett Adelstein, one of the best poker players in the world, I've thought he's been one of the best for a very long time. He is not afraid to flip with you. He's not afraid to run it one time for infinite money. And that makes some people afraid, right? And whenever he gets stacked, he doesn't care so much. And when his opponents get stacked, either they don't care so much and it's neutral, or they go off the deep end. And then he wins tons of money because he gets to play with people who are on tilt. Run it one time. The times you want to run it 2 times or 5 times or 10 times is when you know your opponent's not going to go on tilt. If they're not going to go on tilt when they lose, then you might as well run it multiple times. But the default answer to make it seem like you're not playing favorites or whatever is 1 time. I run it 1 time in basically all scenarios. Now, logically, there are some times you may want to run it twice, and that is when the player you're playing against is going to definitively quit if they lose. If your opponent's going to definitively quit when they lose, if they get stacked, then if they get stacked and leave, yeah, you got their money, but it takes away the ability for you to extract future edges from them. So if you know they're going to quit and leave after they lose this buy-in, then maybe you want to run it twice because that evens out variance. And also if they happen to get some money back or win, then they'll keep playing, which allows you to extract a further edge. But very rarely will you know someone is just not rebuying. And the thing is as well is that there's merit in running it 1 time because it will make people afraid to some extent. Okay, let's talk about Rake. I play basically no home games in New York City, despite the fact that I'm invited to them all the time. Why is that? Because they basically all take 5% Rake uncapped. Hate to break it to you, but you cannot beat 5% rake uncapped unless you play really, 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 really nitty. And that's a problem. Because if you play really, 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 really nitty, you won't get invited back. So, if you play really, 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 really nitty to the point that you are a winning player in a 5% uncapped rake game, you will not be invited back. So, they force you to play a strategy that will result in you paying that 5% rake over and over and over again, which will result in you not winning from the game. So many people think that if the game is overly soft, that they can win, no matter what. But you cannot. Your opponents cannot be bad enough for you to have a substantial win rate with a 5% rake uncapped. Something else a lot of the New York home games want to do is that they will start playing, very often, 2 rounds of Hold'em, 1 round of PLO in the beginning. But you know what happens towards the end of the night? They're playing 1 round of Hold'em and 2 rounds of PLO, or all PLO. And then, you definitely can't beat the rake, because in PLO, you're getting it in closer to flipping than you are in no limit Hold'em very often. So, if that's the case, then you're definitely not going to be able to be a winner. Unless you play really, 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 really tight. And the reason why being really tight is valuable when the rake is high is that when you're playing, you actually are playing with a pretty big edge. So imagine you get it all in for a $10,000 pot and you put in $5,000. If you have 65% equity, you're going to get back 60, if there's a $10,000 pot, you put in 5 each, you're going to get back 6,500 minus the 500 rake, right? And so you still profit $1,000. But that's if you're getting it all in with 65% equity. If you get it all in with 55% equity, then it's not going to work out so well, right? You're just going to break even though you're getting it in with a decent favorite. And in PLO, if you get it all in on the flop or the turn, very often it is 55-ish% on average. I realize sometimes you're in way better, sometimes you're in worse, but on average, you don't have a huge edge when you get it in. So if there is a big rake, it is going to be very, very, very difficult to beat it. Then it says that you play 5% uncapped on GG and $10 no limit games. It seems beatable. Well, how much are you beating it for? Really, ask yourself that. And to be fair, you're playing $10 no limit, which should be very, very soft. Taking into account promotions and rakeback. A lot of home games do not have promotions or rakeback, and if they do, it is minimal. Usually, promotions in home games are food. They will feed you food. Or in some games, they will give you illicit drugs. In some games, they will give you alcohol. In some games, they'll give you massages, stuff like that. Those are the promotions. Or, if you're playing really big stakes, maybe they'll buy you front row seats to various sporting events. They'll do stuff like that. That said, the rake is a reason that most people do not win. Or if they do win, it is minimal. I know for a fact this is the case because I've seen the books from a few private New York City home games. And in one of the games that was the most egregious about this, they made everybody buy in kind of short. Somebody mentioned they play those giant home games, 100 or 200 with a $100,000 buy-in. These home games were $2,550, $1,000 buy-in, 20 big blinds. What kind of edge do you think that you're going to have? What kind of edge do you think you're going to have with a 20 big blind stack? Not a lot, at least in the beginning. Now, stacks sometimes do get deeper towards the end of the day, but that's no good. That's no good because you've already paid a ton of rake. And in those games, one player was a winner over 5 sessions. Anybody who played more than 5 sessions besides this one guy who was super nitty was winning. He was the only guy. The guy who I know was super nitty and he was the only winner. Everybody else over 5 sessions was down. And that's quite tough. It's quite tough when literally no one wins. And then, you know what the owner of the home game did? They'll let the nitty player play, but they want 25% of his action just for free. No markup, none of that. They just want 25% of his action because, he's winning and he should be happy to be there. And by the way, he was winning like $20 an hour playing $25.50, which is not a lot of money. So anyway, be aware that the rake is often killer in these games. All the games you play are rake free. Well, good. Should you be playing looser than normal? Yeah, if there's no rake, you should play looser than GTO charts on our site recommend on pokercoaching.com because those charts presume there is a reasonable rake. Would you play a 1-3 home game? No. Oh, would you play a 1-3 home game that is 5% capped rake? Depends on what it's capped at, right? If it's capped at $5, sure. If it's capped at $30, no. $30 uncapped is basically the same as, or $30 cap is same thing as like uncapped to some extent. Then it says they don't give you food at GG, haha, but the profit is small. Well, yeah, that's exactly right. And yet you have to realize that is it worth playing a game where your profit is going to be very small when you could be doing other things? You got to realize everything in life has an opportunity cost, right? When you go and you play poker all night from 7 p.m. till 3 a.m. to make $6 an hour, let's say you're going to make $20 an hour. Let's say you're going to make a few $100 a night. Is that worth forcing yourself to be on that sleep schedule to begin with? A lot of people don't want to live on that sleep schedule, especially if they have a family or if they have a regular job. That's not so ideal. And could you be doing something else? Maybe you could be. Maybe you could be. I mean, you got to realize to some extent, sitting in an environment where everybody's partying and you're sitting in a chair all night, maybe with smoking and stuff going on, who knows what, in an environment where, Zane here, talk about home game safety, maybe you get robbed, maybe you get cheated, maybe you don't get paid, all of that will take away from your potential win rate or longevity of life, right? One of the big reasons I don't play home games all that often is because every once in a while something really bad happens. Like they get robbed or somebody gets cheated or whatever. And I don't need that in my life. I don't need that in my life at all. And the thing is like while I understand getting robbed is always a threat, I mean casinos get robbed sometimes, right? Getting cheated is something that virtually never happens in licensed regulated casinos. Mainly because the penalty is detrimental. Whereas the penalty for cheating in a home game is basically non-existent, right? And as a professional poker player, if you all of a sudden go on a giant downswing and you don't know why, because you're playing well, you seemingly have an edge, but you just keep losing, that does a lot to your mental stability. I've talked to a few people who have been cheated in various home games and various shady online sites, etc., and it messes them up. And I don't want to get messed up. So, I don't need that. Cruise boats rake a lot. Yes, most places rake a lot. George says, hello, good morning. Can you use the home games as an opportunity to learn? I mean, you can use any games as an opportunity to learn. You could be studying and getting better rather than making $6 an hour. Absolutely true, Nick. Very true statement. It's kind of what I was alluding to here. You could learn to do something besides play poker, right? You could learn a foreign language and become a translator and make more money, right? Is it possible to translate my masterclass into French? Probably not. Again, so Andy, you got to realize, any game is beatable if your opponents are bad enough. The question is, how bad are they? And if you say you're actually already playing these games, keep data, right? If you win over 1,000 hours, it's probably beatable. But you got to sit there and play. Let's talk about home game safety. Real quick. I didn't have this written down, but let's wing it. To be fair, we're always winging it. These are my notes. Aren't these fancy? That's my level of preparation. We're true professionals here. If you enjoy this show, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe button. Home game safety. First things first. Do they make you take cash to the game or not? Some places do, some places don't. Those that do require you to go in and buy out, or buy in and cash out just like a regular casino. The problem with that is that they have money on hand. Any place that has money on hand will inevitably be a target to get robbed, right? Because if they know you have money there, somebody might rob you. Either someone in the game, somebody who knows someone that's in the game, whatever. The nice thing about games that keep money on hand is that you will get paid out correctly every time. The alternative is games that do not keep cash on hand and you play on a ledger where you get vouched for, or maybe you post money up front. Typically, the games in New York City, somebody has to vouch for you, which doesn't really mean anything. And you go there and they give you credit. And then if you win, they'll pay you at some point in the future. If you lose, they will, you'll pay them at some point in the future, usually the next day. Jay Poker's saying a lot of the newer home games in New York City run by the younger folks who use Venmo or Zelle for payments. Yeah, of course. But very often, a lot of the games that do use credit do not collect from the players who lose. A lot of people don't pay the last time, which kind of ruins the game. So, what can you do about that? Well, the problem is... What is happening on this thing? Some bots going nuts. What am I trying to say here? Getting distracted by the pornography industry here. Yeah. Okay, so if you win, a big problem with the games that let you play on a ledger is that if you win, quite often the game will not pay you out all of your winnings. For example, one of the 25-50 games I used to play, if you were up, they would give you $3,000 per week. You could cash out $3,000 per week in a 25-50 game, where when you would win, it'd usually be like $20K, right? When you win a lot. Like 4 buy-ins. 4 buy-ins is not a lot, but that's $20K. It would take you 7 weeks to cash that out, which is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So you need to make sure you understand the rules, right? You feel it's a better deal to pay an hourly rate. Yeah, it's definitely a better deal to pay an hourly rate, assuming it's not all that big, right? Depends on what the hourly rate is. If the hourly rate is $500, probably not. If it's $5, then sure, right? You got to realize all of these things, it's not like there's one thing that's better or worse than the other whenever there's no dollars attached to it, right? Which is better, 5% uncapped rake or $500 per hour playing 1-3 no limit? Probably 5% uncapped, right? But which is better, $10 an hour or 5% uncapped rake? Obviously $10 an hour, right? JPoker saying they require the Zelle payment up front. Yeah, sure. So I will say, JPoker, the problem with paying up front is that people have to have the money, right? That's the interesting thing about this, is that a lot of the home games are quite predatory. And you have to be aware of that, right? Especially when we're talking about big numbers. A lot of people don't have $50,000 sitting in their bank account, but they could get it, or they could get it next month, right? And would you rather the guy lose $50,000 today, or make him come back in a month and maybe lose it then? They'd rather gamble and threaten the person with bodily harm if they do not pay than to wait a month. So that's how they operate, right? So anyway, I understand that if I was to run a home game, I would do the Zelle method and I would not be predatory about it. Not that I run a home game, but you just have to understand what you're getting yourself into, right? Okay, so you may not get paid. That's the problem number 1. Problem number 2, you may get robbed, either by thieves or the police. Is it getting robbed if the police come and take your money? I'm not sure. If you play with cash there, obviously somebody might rob you. That's a real big problem. You don't want to get a gun pointed at you, and you don't want to go to jail, presumably. I don't need that in my life, so I don't go play these games. If you don't care, then do whatever, right? Now, I understand they usually don't take the game players to jail, but, sometimes they do. Usually the people who go rob a game don't shoot anybody, but sometimes they do. I remember for a while there were games in, I think it was North Carolina, where people were getting shot left and right. Police were raiding games left and right. You don't need that. And there was no casinos in that area at the time, and there were tons of home games, tons of big home games. And it was a problem. I would definitely not play those games, even if you could, in theory, make a bunch of money. If the police get your winnings, then it's a robbery. Yeah, I agree, Louis Philippe. Taminator says, to be fair, you can get robbed if you're followed home from the casino. Absolutely. There was a story in Doyle Brunson's biography, I think. Do I have it back here? No. Doyle Brunson has a biography, and so does Bobby Baldwin. They're both very good. They also have basic poker advice scattered through them. I can't think of the names off the top of my head. If somebody knows the names of their biographies, write them in. They're really good. They're fun gambling reads. Anyway, Doyle talks about this story about how somebody followed him home and tried to rob him, and they popped him in the head with a pistol. That's not good. You don't want to be getting followed home and popped in the head with a pistol. You don't need that in your life, right? How often do you hear about home games getting busted by police? Usually it's like a bunch of them in a short period of time and they don't hear anything for a while. Like the North Carolina thing was happening like every other day for a while. This was like 10 years ago, but I mean, it happens. It happens. So anyway, you don't want to get followed home and you don't want to get robbed. Clearly that would be very, very bad. Next, you can get cheated. Trying to think if I should out people who I know who have been caught cheating in home games. And I don't think I will, but it's easy to find. You can Google home game cheat. It'll come right up, I'm sure. There are some people who run games or are friendly with the game runners who will cheat the games in all sorts of ways. All sorts of ways. There's been a bunch of online home games recently, which we haven't even talked about, but like online games where you play with like play money, but they treat it as real money, etc., etc. And people will collude the hell out of you. Or the game will straight up be rigged. There was an app that you could super use on. Is it okay? No, it's not okay, but that's what some shady people will do. They'll run games where they or other people who they know can straight up cheat you. Is collusion possible? Yeah, collusion's possible, but so is straight up cheating. You don't want to play on a site where you can get straight up cheated. Who'd have thought, right? So many people are overly trusting. I've heard so many people say, yeah, but my cousin is the agent for the site, so it couldn't possibly be wrong. It couldn't possibly be shady. I'm always going to get paid as my cousin. But like, no. So many people are very trusting of people that they know, and that is not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Hate to break it to you, it's not a good idea. And you have to be wary of that. So anyway, I would definitely not recommend playing a home game for any amount of money on any of the various home game apps. I know they're going to hate that I'm telling you all this. Such as life, I don't care. I'm not paid by any of them. I'm paid by all of you. It's important to make sure whenever you're listening to someone's advice, who funds them? You all, right here, you all fund me. You fund me through pokercoaching.com. You pay me to give you good information. My good information here is don't play on the unlicensed, unregulated, illegal home game apps, please. Because almost nobody wins. And if you do win, you may not get paid. And if you do get paid, they may not let you play anymore if you're actually good. And if they do let you play again, they may cheat you then. Okay? Don't listen to people who are paid by poker sites to tell you if that poker site that pays them is good. Doesn't sound smart, right? Follow the money, everybody. Come on. Okay. Have you heard of super using happening on Poker Bros? If you listen to what I just said, you'll be able to put all that together. I'm not trying to get sued by any of these companies, etc., with hearsay, okay? Generically, be careful about these apps. Okay? That's all we're going to say here. Use your brain. And the fun thing about these apps is a lot of them rake a lot too. Oh my God. The idea that a home game is going to rake you like 3% uncapped or 5% uncapped to play an online home game, that is just asinine to me. There's this idea though, I kind of hate the idea, but there's this idea that if you're dumb enough to do something, that you deserve it. If you're dumb enough to play on an unlicensed, unregulated, illegal gambling site, and then they super use you, or they cheat you, or they don't pay you, or they slow pay you, or whatever, you deserve it. And maybe you do. Maybe you do. If you make such a blunder, perhaps you do just deserve to lose your money. I want to do everything I can to help you protect your money, but if you're not going to listen to me, you're not going to listen to me, such is life. If you are dumb enough to listen to someone who is paid by an illegal gambling operation, if you listen to their opinion about the illegal gambling operation, maybe you deserve to lose. And if that's the case, then, such is life. I can't protect everyone. And you don't got to listen to me. Just realize that you all pay me. It's my job to help you hold on to your money. What does super use mean? It can mean various things, but essentially it means either they know your cards, they know what cards are coming, etc., etc. They basically know what cards are coming. What's super glue? Super glue is a very sticky substance. You don't want to get that on you. Yeah, people can collude you, etc., etc. meaning they can share cards. That's not actually all that useful in No Limit Hold'em. It is useful, but not like super useful. I remember a long time ago, apparently I was cheated by some Chinese colluding ring in Sit and Goes, and PokerStars sent me like $4,000 or something. They say, you've been cheated over the last month for $4,000. Yet I was up like $50,000 in the month. I'm like, oh, they're not very good at cheating. They're going to cheat me out of $4,000, but I'm still crushing them. So, yeah, I don't think colluding in No Limit Hold'em is all that relevant, but colluding is definitely relevant in games like PLO, or any game that has like a lot of cards involved where you can share cards, right? You know what cards are coming, or not what are coming, what cards are live, what cards are dead, etc. 5-card PLO, sure. Like limit Omaha high-low for sure. So far this session is about how to not lose in home games. Yeah, it turns out, William, if you don't lose, what's that mean you're doing? If you're not losing, what are you doing? You're winning. Right at the beginning, I gave you the advice to win. Learn to play well in the games that you will have to play in your home game. Keep the game fun, so your opponents play poorly. And pinpoint leaks and exploit them hard. We discussed all that thoroughly. Okay, what else bad can happen in home games? I don't know. I mean, really, you can get cheated, you can not get paid, you can get robbed. What else? Opportunity cost issues / unhealthy environment, right? That's that. Yeah, if you're not losing, you're winning. A penny saved actually is a penny earned in this industry. So, what can you do if you want to play a home game and the rake is high? First things first, be a good customer in that you always show up when the host wants you to show up, meaning you help start the games. You always pay on time when you lose, right? You keep the game fun, meaning you keep the game casual. You partake in the party at least a little bit, and you give action, okay? You do these 5 things. You'll be viewed as a good customer, okay? Because you're doing everything the home game owner wants you to do. Then, once you have demonstrated over a few sessions that you are doing everything the home game owner wants you to do, you will have then, let's say, earned the right, even though it's not really a right, you will have then earned the right to ask the home game dealer or home game runner, hey, can I get some Rakeback? Or can I get some bonus for showing up on time and playing? Or if I show up and I play for X number of hours, can you give me some amount of money? Okay? And they may say no or they may say yes. But it does not hurt to ask, right? This is especially true if the home game offers no real perks. Perks being, good seats to sporting events or fancy wines and dinner, like whatever. And they may say, sure, you sit here and you show up on time like you've been doing, basically keep being a good person that helps the game run well. We'll give you a few $100 every time you show up, or $20 when you show up, whatever. That kind of thing is very, very valuable. And that will equate to some amount of Rakeback. Now, it may not be enough to make you win at the game if the rake is high, but it does not hurt to ask the casino owner, who is effectively the host, like a casino host, if you can get some funds back. And if you are a good patron, a good customer, you help their games run, then maybe they'll give it to you. If I ran a home game and I was making money hand over fist, and you helped that game run, you can be very sure that I would give you some money. Or whatever you wanted, right? Maybe you want to order dinner, you want a steak and lobster dinner every day. Whatever, here's your steak and lobster dinner. Keep showing up and paying me $1,000 in rake, right? So, you got to realize that. In home games, GTO goes out the window. Well, you have to understand that, in my mind, the idea of GTO, even though it's not actually what GTO is figuring out what the opponent's doing correctly, and then running it through the solver and seeing what the solver says. For example, if your opponent bluffs every single hand they could possibly bluff with on the river, you run it through the solver. Solver's going to tell you to call with everything, right? Is that GTO? Not exactly. It's GTO based on what the opponent does incorrectly. I already discussed that. We discussed pinpoint leaks and exploit them hard. Should you VPN to play on various poker sites? I would recommend against that. I mean, some sites are more tolerant of that than others. You got to realize that when you break the rules, you're live to get punished, right? Like with ACR, I broke their rules. Their rules are that they can ban you at any point in time for anything. And I spoke poorly about their site. So they banned me, right? I said that I thought it was not as safe as a licensed, regulated U.S. bank. They disagreed and they banned me. Why? Because I broke the rules of their site. They can ban you for any reason at any time. That is their rule. So they got me, right? Such is life. I'm happy to tell all of you that no poker site, even the licensed regulated ones, are as safe as a licensed regulated U.S. bank. Okay? Take that for what it's worth. Please don't ban me all the poker sites. I'm not trying to say anything offensive here. I'm trying to tell you common sense stuff. So, don't break the rules. A lot of sites have rules. Don't VPN. Even if they are tolerant of it, at the time being, they may change at any point in time. There was one major poker site that was very tolerant of VPNs. They were like, they had a guy who would help you set up a VPN. But then overnight, they changed their policy and banned everybody who was using VPNs. You know, like, they didn't take their money, I don't think, but they could have. They could have. All this knowledge and tips makes you think if Jonathan set up his own home game, there would be a lot of customers. You know, I am very sure that if I ran my own unlicensed, unregulated, illegal home game, that it would boom. I hear that a lot of people who run these home games, like a lot of these influencers on YouTube, etc., who run these home games, make a ton of money. But you got to realize, I don't only care about money. First off, I got a wife and 2 kids. I'm not going to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. That would be really, really bad. Any risk of going to jail would be really, really bad for me. Also, a lot of these home games fail. Even if the owner, you know, it's not me. It's because I don't have this place. But like if I was the owner, stuff happens. Like the owner may get stiffed for a ton of money if they let people play on credit, right? Although I wouldn't let people play on credit. And maybe I don't have big games because of it. But I don't know, stuff happens. Stuff happens. Also, you got to be on your phone all the time, trying to send people money and keeping track of all that stuff. I don't need that in my life for any amount of money. It's like, that's not what I want. I want to have downtime to hang out with my family, right? And I just don't want to go to jail. I don't want to do illegal things, even if I think it should not be illegal. It's important to realize, just because you disagree with a law does not mean that the law does not exist, right? I don't agree with plenty of laws. I agree with plenty of laws, but I don't agree with some laws. But I still obey them because I am trying to not go to jail or get in legal trouble. Some people don't care about that at all. If you're a young person or a really old person and you have nothing going on in life, maybe it makes sense to play hard and fast with the rules. I don't know. I mean, it's a risk-reward thing, right? At this point in my life, I don't especially need more money, and I also don't especially want to go to jail. So, no thank you. No thank you. Let's see. There's a lot of risk in New York City, mainly the mob. I don't know about any of that. I mean, I guess to be fair, I have played in games where people later got arrested for being in the mob, even though I did not know they were in the mob. Matt's talking about bad beats here. Look, inevitably, sometimes you're going to go on bad beats, okay? You're going to get bad beats. Such is life. Don't worry about bad beats. Yeah, you can make a lot of money quickly running a home game, or you can invest time and make a business that is a legitimate business. Indeed, indeed. The thing is the illegal businesses often do make a lot of money quickly, but they are at a high risk of getting shut down. Like, no one's going to shut down pokercoaching.com, right? And to be fair, I didn't make any money with it for a long time, but I didn't mind because I just like doing the work, right? I don't think I'd especially like herding cats as a home game runner. That does not sound like what I want to do. And I don't want to go to jail. I'm not going to go to jail for running pokercoaching.com because I'm not doing anything illegal, right? It's also important to realize that just because you don't know the law does not mean that you are immune from it. You can't play dumb. The government does not use that as an excuse. For example, I'm not sure if a lot of you know, but you, as an individual, are not allowed legally in America to promote an unlicensed, unregulated, illegal activity. You're not allowed to do it. You are allowed to go to jail. I've tried to tell a few people I'm friendly with who promote unlicensed, unregulated poker sites that, hey, you got to be a little bit careful. And a lot of them told me, yeah, but no one's been sent to jail yet for this. Which is true. No one has been. And I'm willing to gamble. Fine, right? It's important to realize that everything has some amount of risk. And if you're cool with it, you're cool with it. And like, what are the odds that someone who's promoting an illegal gambling site actually goes to jail? Probably pretty low. But I don't want to be the one that make a example out of. That would be quite bad. What's my World Series schedule looking like? my World Series schedule is looking like I'm going to show up on June 29th. I'm going to have a party for the holders of a royal flush of my NFT, Deck of Degeneracy, or one of my photos, the real Las Vegas. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do all sorts of fun things. It's going to be an all-day party. I'm going to spend all the money. It's gonna be we have like 50 people signed up for this party. I thought we were going to have like 20. I don't think I've ever thrown a 50-person all-day party, but such is life. Then I'm going to play a $10,000 tournament the next day if I'm not hungover. Too bad. Then the day after that, let me see. Where's my schedule? I'll tell you my schedule. I got a lot going on. The day after that, we're having a home game for poker coaching members at Aria. Look out for that soon. You all said you wanted to have a home game with me. For poker coaching members on Aria, July 2nd. We'll be sending out a invite list for poker coaching members very soon. Then, on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, I'm having a retreat for my employees. They all come out. We talk about the future of poker coaching, how to improve the site for everyone. The 6th, we're going to play the main event. The 7th, there's some tournament. The 10th, there's some tournament. 11th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Tournaments all those days. So really, I'm not playing all that many tournaments. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 tournaments, that's it. Am I bracelet hunting? No. Why? Because again, wife and kids. I do not want to be away from home for 2 months. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So, it's going to be a very, very, very busy thing. I have a lot going on between now and then at home and, traveling. We're going to go to Hershey Park. That's apparently like a little Disney World. We're going to go doing that over the next few weeks. My wife's going to Chicago for a week. I'm going to an NFT conference called VCon. If you're going to VCon, make sure you say hello. Hit me up. I'm going to that in May. I was actually going to go to VCon and then to the Super High Roller Bowl. But they moved the Super High Roller Bowl until the fall. So that was supposed to be like my big trip in May. I was going to go play the Super High Roller Bowl and then come home, but they moved that. Like, had everything booked and then they moved it. Any chance of getting a poker coaching home game in New York City at some point? No, definitely not. I'm not playing any home game in person in New York City. Sorry. That said, I do have, I know you're tired of me talking about this NFT, but I have an NFT series called Deck of Degeneracy. And if you play poker, does anybody here play poker? If you don't play poker, I won't talk about this. If you all play poker, where'd my spreadsheet go? Let me look at my spreadsheet. We are having some free rolls. I'll tell you what free rolls we're having. You have to have a Deck of Degeneracy card, just one. On April 13th, we're having a 1 Ethereum free roll. 1 Ethereum is about $3,500. So if you hold the card, you can play. 8 p.m., April 13th. We'll play that on Club GG. Then, April 22nd. Same thing. 1 Ethereum free roll. April 29th. Same thing. 1 Ethereum free roll. And then, there's one other free roll. I forget what the date is. Maybe April 11th? Let's see. Is it April 11th? It's not on my schedule. Yeah, April 11th. We have another free roll. 3 Ethereum free roll. About $10,000 free roll if you hold a card. You need one card. Check it out. deckofdegeneracy.com. It's a lot of fun. So far, we've given away $100,000 to holders of that. They had some of my action in the $10,000 tournament that I took second in. They had some action of Shannon Shore, currently number 2 player in the world. He was the best man at my wedding. He took 5th place in a $50,000 tournament we have action in. He's actually playing a $50,000 tournament on April 6th, in 2 days. And we have 0.4% of him on the first 2 entries. So anyway, check it out. Are the cards sold out? The cards all are sold out, but you can buy them on the secondary market. Go to OpenSea.io, OPENSEA.io, and type Deck of Degeneracy. Deck of Degeneracy. They're kind of pricey now. I was trying to tell all of you to buy them about a month ago, but nobody listened. Some of you listened, and you made a bunch of money. Some of you didn't listen, and now you're going to have to pay up. We initially sold them for 0.1 Ethereum. They were about $200 back then, $250. Now they're, I think, 0.17, and Ethereum's gone up, so now they're like $400-something, almost $500, whatever they are. If you want to play some poker free rolls and stuff, if you want to have some action in my tournaments, if you want to get some sweet art dropped to you, then it's for you. It's not for everybody, but you all asked me for free rolls. This is a way for me to fund these free rolls. You got to realize, it costs money to run free rolls. And if I'm going to run any sort of tournament, I want it to be relevant. I was thinking, whenever I'm part of an NFT series, like if I'm buy into it, I want to care. I want it to be relevant. And a great way to make things relevant is to make it kind of valuable, right? Like, I don't care if I have 0.01% of someone in a tournament, but if I have 1% of them in a $50,000 buy-in tournament, I'll pay attention. I'll pay attention. So anyway, I want to make sure whatever we do is relevant. And, you know, if you win $1,000 in a free roll poker tournament, you'd probably care a little bit, right? What do you think about home games that are small, like 1-2 and 1-3? What's the highest rake you would pay? I mean, again, Alex, it doesn't matter, man. You need to figure out, I guess you could be a man or a woman. It doesn't matter what the rake is. You need to get in there and put in volume and see if you can actually win. See if you can actually win. The problem with Ethereum is gas fees. You got to trade something instant and cheap. Well, the nice thing about my collection is that if you buy one card, you can hold it indefinitely, and you'll get a bunch of benefits. You don't have to be buying and trading and flipping. You don't have to unless you just want to. Realize, just because something exists does not mean it's for you. And that's okay. I am happy to have onboarded a bunch of people onto the project, though, and onto Ethereum. A lot of people are new to it, but they're learning, right? I'm pretty sure that things like NFTs are going to be the future for most, call them influencers, right? A lot of people think NFTs are just pieces of art, but I view them as pieces of utility, kind of like a ticket to an event, right? For example, you buy a Deck of Degeneracy thing, a card. It's a cool piece of art, but you also get to play free roll poker tournaments. You get some maybe gambles on various other gambling actions, such as poker tournaments, maybe sport bets, etc. You get some sweet art airdrop to you, maybe. They could go up in value. They could go down in value, right? But there's a lot of stuff happening, and it's not just a piece of art. That said, nothing wrong with pieces of art. But I really like utility, and I know a lot of you have asked me for pieces of my tournament action. How can I get a piece of your tournament action? Well, here it is. If you want it, you can have it. If you don't want it, it's not for you. So that's me for today. I hope you learned a little bit about home games. Main points, though, is that if you're playing these like mixed games, you need to learn to play all the games well and make sure you play a game when you get to pick when the position matters the most. Very, very important. You also want to make sure you keep the game really fun. You want to be a catalyst for fun, right? You also want to make sure you pinpoint the opponent's leaks and take advantage of them maximally. Eventually, you'll have to use the Deck of Degeneracy cards as the key to get new cards. Nick, I don't know what you're talking about, man. The project is guaranteed to last for a year. We will use 80% of secondary royalties to fund the project as long as that possibly happens. Does volume equal overcome variance equal profit in the long run? If you have an edge. If you have an edge. Fred said something, but I lost it. Fred says, you've been running badly lately. It's affecting your mental game with negativity. Any advice to avoid a tilt? Well, you say lately. How long is lately? Is lately for like 3 months? Or is lately for like 2 weeks, right? Most people get sad when they run badly for just a little bit. You have to ask, why am I getting sad? Variance happens. Variance happens. Such is life. Understand that that's part of the game that you signed up for. You're not going to win all the time. We're not playing chess here. You will inevitably go on downswings. You will. Especially if you're not putting in that much volume. What a lot of people do wrong is they play like once or twice a week live, and then they lose for like 3 months, and they think, oh my god, I'm on such a terrible downswing. But you got to realize, you will have played, what, 16 sessions? You're going to go on 16 session downswings all the time, especially if you're playing poker tournaments. You're definitely going to go on 16 session downswings. I mean, I think I've gone 40 tournaments in a row with no cashes, not even a cash, right? Twice in my career. And so has every other good pro. That's just part of the game. If you play enough, you will inevitably catch a bad downswing. Such is life. Craig says, shout out to your sons. Yeah, James and Thomas, people always ask, where are they now? Why don't they come on the show anymore? Because they're in school. They're big boys now. Deborah says, you actually caught me live. Well, good. Thanks for being here. We're about to pack it up. Sorry. You're going to sign up for my classes to prepare for the senior event. Great. Scott says, if you enjoy the show, click the like and subscribe button. Also click the notification bell. I would appreciate that if you enjoy this show. I'm a true legend. I don't know if I'm a legend. I feel like a regular person, but if you think I'm a legend, okay. I'm just a regular guy trying my best to add value to this world. You're doing yourself a massive disservice if you are playing poker and not a member to poker coaching. I mean, Chris, you got to realize again, all things are not for everyone, but if you do want to study poker and get good at poker, I've done everything I can to make pokercoaching.com the site for you. It is the site that I wish I had when I started playing poker, but also it's the site that I use all the time to continue studying. I've hired literally some of the best players in the world who will make content for me. Stuff that I want to learn from. And then I get to share it with all of you. Think of the value. It's valuable for everybody, right? I'm a big fan of creating wins. We're all winning. You look sharp in that new t-shirt. This is an old t-shirt, but it is a sharp t-shirt. This is actually like a pajama shirt. It's like stretchy. I love these shirts. These are made by Saxx, S-A-X-X. I think it's called their Sleepwalker shirts. I have a ton of them. All right, I'm going to go now. What was my best tournament? Upswing. I mean, it must have been back in 2008. I won $2.5 million in like a year. It's hard to win $2.5 million in a year. Also, you got to realize, though, that like in terms of buy-ins, that probably wasn't my biggest upswing. I mean, I've won plenty of tournaments online for like 250 buy-ins, right? I mean, one time I won a 10,000 person $10 buy-in tournament. It's like the World Series main event, right? I think I got what did I get, 100K? Something like that. I don't know how much it was. No. I got 10K? Yeah, I got 10K or 12K or something. That was I got 1,200 buy-ins. I remember that. I got 1,200 buy-ins. That's a heck of an upswing, but they were $10 buy-ins. Right? So what is a big upswing in terms of dollars? I mean, yeah, I don't think I've had too many $2.5 million upswings. Haven't had too many 1,200 buy-in upswings either. I mean, 2 weeks ago I cashed for 150 buy-ins in a $150 online tournament. Pretty good. But, you know, $150 buy-ins. If you go on a 40 buy-in downswing in a row, then you need a decent bankroll. Oh, you need like 200 buy-ins to play poker tournaments. Check out pokercoaching.com/bankroll for my bankroll Bible. Okay? A lot of people think that you need no money to play poker. Yeah, you need a bankroll. I'm a professional poker player, if you all didn't know that. And you need a big bankroll to play poker tournaments, especially tournaments with big fields, right? And like when I was on my downswing, I was playing World Series of Poker events with 2,000 people. Yeah, you're going to go on big downswings there. Yeah. All right, that's it. Enjoy yourselves. Have fun. Make the most of this week. You only have 1 week for March 4th. Oh my God, I don't even know what month it is. What is the month? April? You only have one April 4th, 2022 week. Please make the most of it. Enjoy your games. Have fun. Click the like and subscribe button. Tell your friends about poker coaching in this channel if you'd like. That would do me a big favor. Thank you for being here.